guys, so this is going to be a bit of an unusual video for me. So I've had some requests to show how I do my base makeup, and it's not really something that I ever do on camera because I just find it to be incredibly boring and repetitive, and I always use the same products and I always use the same techniques and I never really switch things up. So I thought I would just kind of show you my current my current foundation routine. I do have oily skin. It's been really hot here these days. I do prefer a full coverage foundation, which is matte. And I guess that's all I wanted to say, so I'm gonna show you how I do this look. The eye look is in a separate video. I will link that up there if you want to check that out, but if you want to keep watching and see how I, end up with this kind of skin, then just keep watching, I guess. Okay, so what I'm going to start off with is I'm actually going to start off with a primer, which is not really something that I use a lot, but I got this when I was in Norway and I saw it and I was like, I wonder if this is going to be a dupe for my Versali Unicorn Drops, which I absolutely love. Now, do they do anything for my foundation or anything like that? I have no idea. But the product that I'm talking about is from Revolution Skincare. This is their Superfruit Extract. It's an antioxidant rich serum and primer. I have been using this day and night, and when I use it in the morning, I will use this as a kind of moisturizer and primer in one. So I haven't done anything to my skin today. I've only used a toner to kind of just clean it a little bit, and I'm gonna take just a little bit of this. You don't need a lot. You basically need like 2 drops, I would say, probably not even 2 drops, but this just distributes so evenly over your face, and like I said, you don't need a lot. So I'm just gonna put this all over your face, or all over my face. It smells so good. It smells really nice and fresh, and I feel like when it dries down, it's almost like a little bit tacky, but it just feels really, really good on my skin. I feel like it sinks into my skin right away, which is really, really nice. So for foundation, I'm going to use a foundation that I absolutely love, and all of these products are going to be products that I really like. So I'm going to use the Estee Lauder Double Wear. This is one of my holy grail foundations, especially in the summer, because this is so long lasting, but it still doesn't look cakey at all. I have mine in the shade 3N1 Ivory Beige. So this is like my darkest shade. This is as dark as I get in the summer, and I did purchase one of these pump things on Amazon. I'll link that in the description box if you want to go check it out, but that has been such a lifesaver for me. So the kind of brush that I like to use, I don't use sponges. I don't know if I've ever said that, but I never use a sponge to apply my makeup because I just don't like that. So I'm going to take a brush like this. This is from the BH Cosmetics marble brush set. So it's basically just like a very flat, dense, kind of, not a kabuki brush, but it's denser than that. I don't really know how else to explain it, but this is great for using for cream products, for foundations. It's even good for concealer. I have a brush that's basically the same as this, but in a smaller size. So I'm going to start off by just taking one pump on the back of my brush here, and I usually start applying my foundation on the bottom of my face because this is like my problem area. This is where I tend to break out, and I also want to make sure that I get a good line between my foundation and like my neck, so I always make sure to bring my foundation down quite a bit. And even though I'm using a full coverage foundation, I always try to use as little foundation as I possibly need to get the coverage that I want, because I don't want it to look cakey or feel heavy on my skin. So I really try to blend out as much as I can with that one pump before I go in with more foundation. And I tend to be okay using only 2 pumps of foundation because I do spread it out so nicely. And I also use a lot less foundation on my forehead because I always wear my hair down, so I don't really need coverage up there. But since my skin is a little bit lighter than this foundation and my body is a bit darker than my face, I still need to have foundation here because my forehead won't be the same as the rest of my face if I'm like out and about and it's windy or something. So just kind of something I need to do. So that's one pump. That's basically half of my face done. So you can now see the difference in the coverage of the foundation. I love the finish of this. I think it looks so nice and kind of natural, but it's also not too dewy because you guys know I don't like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take one more pump now on my brush, and I'm basically just going to do the same on this side. And so now that I have my foundation on my face, I will take this same brush and I will kind of use it as a bit of a beauty blender, and I'll just kind of pat it all over my skin to make sure there are no brush strokes or anything. But usually when I use a brush like this, I don't really tend to get brush strokes. The only time I ever get like streaks on my face is if I use more of like a stippling kind of brush. I know the one that's really popular is from Sigma. I don't know if I have that in front of me now, but that one is definitely more of like a kind of dense stippling brush, and I don't like those for foundation. So I'm next going to go in with my concealer, and usually I use the Born This Way by Too Faced, but I recently bought my Shape Tape again because I wanted to just see if I still like this as much as I used to, and I really do. I've been using it the past week or so. I'm almost out of my Too Faced, that's why I wanted to buy another one to have as a backup. So I got my Shape Tape in light neutral. I don't like my concealer to be like too light. I'm not really one to like really highlight, but I do like it to be maybe like a shade darker than or lighter than my foundation. So I feel like this is a pretty good match for me. So as you can see, I'm just putting it on like the high points of my face or where I want to conceal. And maybe this was a little bit much. I don't usually like to overdo it with my concealer. And for the brush I'm using this one from, what is this, from Smashbox? I don't know if this has a name. It says Cream Cheek, so I guess this is like a cream blush brush, or I guess you could use this for cream contour as well, but I really like this for concealer. So I basically use this the way people use a beauty blender. I don't go in and like start sweeping. I usually just like pat it in, and I kind of use patting motions to just blend everything out the way that I want it to be. And I also don't like to put a lot of foundation on my nose, because if I put too much product on my nose, it tends to kind of like slide out and not want to stick. So I tend to use my concealer mostly for like covering my nose area. And then I'm just going to go in and blend out the concealer underneath my eye here. Again, I'm mostly using tapping motions, except when I just need to kind of bring this down a little bit to mesh into my foundation. So now that my foundation is blended, I'm going to go back in with my foundation brush and just make sure that the edges between the concealer line where I blended out my concealer is meshed in with my foundation again. And then to set my face, I'm going to use the Wet n Wild Loose Setting Powder. I've been using this so much lately. I don't know if you can see how much of a dent I've done in this, but this is like probably 2/3 empty, which is a lot because I haven't had this powder for that long. So I'm going to go ahead and take a setting brush, and this is usually what I use for setting underneath my eye. This is the Wet n Wild P65 brush, and I'm basically just putting a lot of this on my brush and then just patting it on underneath my eye. I don't really bake, but I do use a lot of product just to set, and I also just go over my chin here because that's usually where I get oily, is in my T-zone. So I'm just really patting the powder into my skin before I go in with a bit of a big fluffy brush. So I'm going to put this brush away now, and I'm going to go into one of my bigger brushes. This is from a brand called Matto. I think I got this from Amazon. If I can find it, I will link it. And so I use a lot of powder when I powder my face, so I'm going pretty heavy into this, and I'm basically just pressing the powder into my skin. I don't do sweeping motions until I'm ready to get rid of the excess. I really want to push the powder into my skin because, like I said before, I do have oily skin, so I really want to make sure that I'm staying matte for, you know, as long as I can, especially since the days here are so hot. It usually gets up to like 105 during the day or so. So now that I've packed on a lot of powder, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove all of the excess here. And then what I usually do is I take my Morphe Continuous Setting Mist, and I'm just going to spray my face with this just to make sure that nothing is looking too powdery. And then after I'm done with that, I'm gonna do my brows, which I always do my base in this order. I don't know how people are able to do their brows before they do their base, because I would just make such a mess, and I also don't like carving out my brows, which could be why I find it so hard to do brows first. I don't know how people do that, because I just get like powder in my brows, I get foundation in my brows. I can't deal with that. So I'm gonna use my CoverGirl Ultra Fine, I always forget the name of this, Ultra Fine Brow Pencil. And I'm just gonna use this spoolie. As you can see, I don't have a lot of brows, so this step isn't really necessary. I'm just gonna kind of brush them out before I go in with the pen itself here. And I'm not gonna explain how I do my brows because I feel like everyone's brow routine is just different, but I always just start off by like lining underneath my brow where I want my, you know, line to be here. And I'm not gonna lie, I also don't put a lot of time and effort into my brows because I always wear my hair down, so it's just not really that big of a deal if they don't turn out perfect, you know? So when I'm done with the line underneath my brow, I'm gonna basically draw a line on top, and then I'm just going to fill this in when I'm done. And like obviously your shape that you want on your brows is just going to depend on how you like your brows to be. I don't really do anything fancy. Sometimes my brows end up being a little bit rounder, sometimes they're a bit more arched. It just depends on the day. Like I feel like my brows never look the same. So now that I have the lines, I'm basically just going to fill them in. I mean, this is nothing crazy at all, and it's really not that complicated. So as you can see, I do leave like the tiniest bit open because in the front I do like to kind of, you know, pull my hairs or pull the pen strokes upwards instead of just filling in. I don't know if it really makes a difference at all, but in my mind it does, and that's all that matters. And I don't like to have like a super defined like Instagram brow where it's very light in the front, but I do like to sometimes try to make it a little bit lighter in the front than it is like in the tail of my brow, but honestly it's not really that important. I'm really not too fussed about my brows, to be honest. Like as long as they look decent, like that's good enough for me. So now that I've kind of filled them in, I'm just gonna run the spoolie through them again here just to remove excess product if I have any. And then if I feel like it removed a little bit too much product, I'm just gonna go in and fill in like the sparse spots here, which I usually have a lot of. So that's basically it for my brows. I mean, as you can see, I don't really have a technique. I just outline them and fill them in, and that's basically it, which is why I never do my base on camera, because I find this whole thing here to just be very straightforward and just not that exciting, but I thought I would just like show you anyway how I do things. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my hair down because I don't know what it is. I don't like having my hair back. I just don't feel like myself. So I'm gonna take my hair down, and then we're gonna get into putting on some bronzer and some blush and some highlighter and stuff like that. And for my blush and bronzer, this is not going to come as a surprise at all because I've been raving about these all the time, so I need to use them. I'm gonna take my Cover FX Monochromatic Bronzer Duo in the shade Sunkissed Bronze, and I'm first gonna go into the matte shade right here. And the brush that I'm using is one from Referral. I love this. This is the P09A brush. I don't know what this brush is going to be called when these brushes become available. These brushes will be available for sale in December. This is a prototype that I was sent by them, and I just absolutely love it. So I'm gonna be pretty heavy-handed with this, and I'm basically covering all sides of my brush with this bronzer, and I'm gonna tap it off a little bit. And for like the bronzer application where I like to put it, it's also going to just depend on your face, but for me, I like to place my bronzer like above where people would normally put their contour. So here is what usually people would put their contour, so I like to put my bronzer higher up because I feel like it makes my face look more proportionate, because I do have a bit of a round face. So I always start on top, and I just kind of pat down most of the bronzer on top here because this is where I want most of the pigment to be. And I always try to kind of make a bit of a triangle with my bronzer, so I will kind of start here as the bottom of my triangle, and then I will pull it down. So it's gonna look a little bit like this. So I'm just gonna kind of use this brush now and just use small circular motions and just bring this bronzer down. I like using a small brush for my bronzer application because sometimes it gets a little bit out of hand if I use a bigger brush, because I have a very small face. Like I'm a very small framed person. I'm 5'1", and all of my features are, you know, genetically just very small. I have a small face, I have a small neck, I have small wrists. It's just how my body is made. So usually I would have to wear, you know, I wear small shoes, I wear small size rings, so it just makes sense that I need small brushes to fit my small face. And so I'm just gonna kind of build up this to be the intensity that I want. And I don't put bronzer any other place than on my face. I don't put anything underneath my chin, I don't contour my nose, I don't do anything on my forehead. This is the only place that I use bronzer because this is where I feel like I need it. I struggle a lot to try to use it underneath my jawline because I feel like it just gets muddy, and I don't have the time to use that much effort just to kind of make my face look a little bit smaller. Like, it's fine, you know? Like, I don't need to perfect myself. I just want to feel good about what, you know, I look like, and that doesn't mean trying to look perfect because there's no such thing as perfection. I'm not trying to look perfect at all. I'm just trying to, you know, just look a little bit more presentable for myself, not even for other people, but I just want to feel good about myself, and whatever that means to you is good enough. You know, if that's a full face of makeup, then that's great. If that's just running out the door with a mascara, then good for you. I say do whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable in your day-to-day life. And for me, that's only putting bronzer in one spot. So that is what I am doing. And I know some people would probably say that I'm using too much bronzer and blush, but you know what? That's what makes me happy. And so that's what I'm gonna just continue doing. So now that I've done the matte side of this, I'm gonna go into the shimmery side as well, because I just find that it helps everything blend out a lot better, and it also gives it a bit of a, not a glow or a sheen, but it just makes everything more seamless, you know, and just like blend it together. I don't know what it is, but I just really like to layer these two because I just think it looks so good. And for my blush, I'm also going to use one of my Cover FX monochromatic blush duos because I'm so obsessed. This is in the shade Mojave Mauve. I've used this so much. Like, it's not even funny how often I use this because I'm just so obsessed with this that I can't stop. I don't know what it is. I've never been this obsessed with a blush formula before in my life. So I'm first gonna go into the matte side here. This is quite pigmented, so I do tap off my brush a little bit, but I like a lot of pigment in my blush, you guys know that. So I'm just going to gently start by just placing this where I want it, and I'm using very, very light pressure, and that goes with most of my applications except for my eye makeup. But for my face, like especially my bronzer and blush and stuff, I use a very light hand at the beginning, and then the more I have placed down the product, I will go in with a bit of a heavier hand to blend it out. I feel like your pressure when you're using your brushes are very important, and that goes with like eye makeup as well. I don't really ever like mention what kind of pressure I'm using on my brush when I apply my eyeshadows, but if that's something you want to see, like a very detailed tutorial on how I do one of my eyeshadow looks instead of being like, I'm just gonna put this into my crease, let me know, because I do feel like it's something that's very important and something that's not really talked about a lot, and something that probably, you know, if you've ever done art before, you would know, because the pressure and how you hold your brush kind of makes a big difference in, you know, the final outcome. So as you can see, I'm just being very light pressured with this when I do put it on, and I like to build it up. I mean, sometimes I definitely get a little bit out of hand, but that's just because I don't really mind having too much product on my cheek, to be honest, because I like the look of a lot of blush. I can never say those. I'm surprised I made it this far in the video without confusing brush and blush, but anyway, I don't know where I was, but I'm gonna finish putting on this blush now, and then we're gonna get into the shimmery side of this because I do like to use both on my face. I also like to put just a little bit of blush like right on my chin here. I just feel like it kind of warms up your face and it makes it look a little bit more youthful. So I'm next going to go into the shimmery side now, and I'm going to use the same brush. This is also a referral brush. This is the P.O. I don't know what the official name of this is, I'm sorry, because I know they changed their names. So I'm just gonna basically coat my brush in this because I like using a lot of this. Again, very light pressure. I'm just gonna use circular motions and basically just put this right on top of where I put down the first blush here, and this is just so beautiful. I can't get enough of these. I just think that they are so well made, and I just love the formula so much. I feel like it's just hard to mess up this formula, which I really appreciate. So now that I have the blush down, we need some highlighter. I don't know what I want to use today. What have I been loving lately? So since I mentioned the Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighter, I guess I will use that today because I just think this is so beautiful. It's in the shade Crystal High, and I'm just going to take a bit of a eyeshadow brush to do this with. I really like using eyeshadow brushes with this highlighter in particular, and this one kind of picks up the product like very easily. You just kind of use the side of the brush. And you could definitely use your, other highlighting brushes too, but I find something that's a bit more kind of dense and flat on the side works better than something that's very fluffy. So, I mean, you can see how intense this highlighter is. I'm actually going to go over to this side and distribute the rest of the product on this brush on this side before I go in with more on the other side. I mean, this is intense. So my camera shut off, I'm sorry about that. I was saying that I think that this color is maybe a little bit too light for me now in the summer, but I can definitely get away with it. But I think in the winter I'm going to absolutely love this. So I'm not going to really go into details on like where I apply highlighter. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Just put it on the high points of your face. So I do like to put a little bit just like on my nose right here. I like being Rudolph, so I put a lot on like the tip of my nose and just a little bit on my cupid's bow here. And I'm also going to go back in with my blush brush now and just make sure that everything is looking nice. And this is also going to just darken up the highlighter a bit because I feel like it's a little bit too light for me. So I just gently tap over like the highlighter with my blush brush and just get a little bit of that pink pigment on top. And I just find that this really blends everything together nicely. So basically this is where we're at, and this is what my skin is looking like. I'm gonna go ahead and film another video now where I test out some other things, and then I'll come back to conclude this video and show you the final look. So here is what the look ended up looking like all together with my eyes done, with my lips done. So I am really happy. I feel like I'm having a pretty good skin day today. I've now had my makeup on for, I want to say it's been probably 45 minutes, like my base makeup, and it's looking really, really nice, at least in my opinion. So yeah, let me know what you think. Do you do your makeup similarly? Do you use more products than I do? I feel like I use like the bare minimum when it comes to products. Like I don't use contour products. I don't use a lot of fluff, if that makes sense. Like I basically just use like everything that I feel like I need to use. So I'll show you some close-ups of what my skin looks like now after I've had this on for like an hour or so. And yeah, that's basically going to be my video. Don't expect a lot of like base makeup tutorials from me. I'll definitely do some get ready with me's and stuff. I do have a couple planned that I want to do, and so that will be coming up, but I will not probably be doing a lot of tutorials on how to do base makeup because like I said, I do the same thing basically every day and it just gets repetitive. So yeah, I hope you like this, and I hope you were happy to see what I actually look like before I have all of my makeup on. So yeah, thank you for watching as always. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.